The clock on the wall showed 12:15. Lunchtime. For most students at Riverside High School, this was the best part of the day, a chance to eat, talk with friends, and forget about classes for a while. But for Amara, it was the hardest 30 minutes she had to survive. She sat in the back corner of the cafeteria, at a table nobody wanted. The chair was broken on one side, and the table had old gum stuck underneath. But Amara didn't care. She just wanted to be invisible. Her stomach made a loud noise. She pressed her hands against it quickly, hoping nobody heard. She hadn't eaten anything since yesterday. Not because she wasn't hungry. She was always hungry. But there was no food at home. The fridge had been empty for 3 days now. Amara was 16 years old. She lived with her mother in a small apartment on the edge of town. The kind of place where the walls were thin and you could hear your neighbors arguing at night. The kind of place where the heat didn't work properly in winter and the windows didn't close all the way. Her mother worked 2 jobs, sometimes 3. She left before Amara woke up and came home after Amara was supposed to be asleep. But Amara never really slept. She stayed up waiting, listening for the sound of her mother's tired footsteps on the stairs. Even with all that work, it was never enough. The bills kept coming. The rent kept going up. And food became something they had to think about carefully. Very carefully. Amara owned exactly 4 shirts, 2 pairs of jeans, and 1 pair of shoes that had a hole in the left sole. She put cardboard inside to keep her foot dry when it rained. Nobody knew about the cardboard. Nobody knew about a lot of things. The lunch line was getting shorter now. Amara watched and waited. She had a free lunch card in her pocket. The school gave it to students whose families couldn't afford to pay. It was supposed to help, but for Amara, pulling out that card felt like wearing a sign that said, "I'm poor," in big red letters. She waited until most students had gotten their food. Then she stood up slowly and walked toward the line. Just a few more steps. Just grab the tray, show the card, and go back to her corner. Simple. She had done it 100 times before. But today was different. Oh, look. Everyone. A voice rang out across the cafeteria. Loud and sharp like a knife. The charity case is here. Amara froze. She knew that voice. Everyone knew that voice. Megan Price stood near the front of the cafeteria with her group of friends. She had long blonde hair that always looked perfect. Her clothes were expensive. Her father was someone important in town, and Megan never let anyone forget it. "Did you all see that?" Megan continued, pointing at Amara. "She's using the free lunch card. Again. Must be nice getting everything handed to you while the rest of us actually have to pay." A few people laughed. Others looked away, embarrassed but too scared to say anything. Megan had power in this school. The kind of power that came from money and connections. Nobody wanted to be on her bad side. Amara's face burned hot. Her hands were shaking as she took the tray from the lunch counter. The cafeteria worker, an older woman with kind eyes, gave her a small nod of encouragement, but it didn't help. Nothing helped in moments like this. "What's wrong?" Megan called out. "Cat got your tongue? Or are you too hungry to talk? When was the last time you ate anyway? Last week?" More laughter. Louder this time. Amara walked quickly back to her corner table. She kept her head down, her eyes on the floor. She would not cry. She promised herself that. She would not give Megan the satisfaction of seeing her cry. She sat down and stared at her tray. A slice of pizza, some vegetables, and a small carton of milk. To most people, it was just a regular school lunch, nothing special. But to Amara, it was everything. It was the only real meal she would have today. Maybe the only one she would have until Monday. She ate slowly, trying to make it last. Every bite mattered. Every single bite. From across the cafeteria, she could hear Megan still talking about her. Making jokes. Calling her names. Amara blocked it out as best as she could. She had practiced doing that. Years of practice. What Megan didn't know, what nobody at this school knew, was what Amara did every night after school. While other teenagers watched TV or played video games or hung out at the mall, Amara walked to the public library. It was a 20-minute walk from her apartment, but she didn't mind. The library was warm. The library was quiet. And the library had something Amara needed more than anything else. Books, computers, knowledge. Amara had taught herself things that would make her teacher's head spin. She started with basic math, then moved to algebra, then calculus. She read books on physics and chemistry. She learned coding from online tutorials, staying at the library until closing time every single night. The librarians knew her by name. They saved the good computers for her. Sometimes they even brought her snacks from the vending machine, pretending they had bought too much for themselves. Amara was smart. Not just regular smart. The kind of smart that comes around once in a generation. The kind of smart that could change the world if given half a chance. But nobody at school saw that. They only saw the poor girl with the old clothes and the free lunch card. They only saw what they wanted to see. After lunch, Amara went to her next class. History. She sat in the back as usual and took out her notebook. It was almost full of notes and ideas. Not for class, but for her own projects. Designs for apps, solutions to problems, dreams she kept hidden from everyone. Her teacher, Mr. Henderson, was talking about the Great Depression, about how millions of people lost everything overnight, about how families struggled to survive. Amara listened carefully. She understood that history better than anyone in the room. She was living her own version of it right now. When the final bell rang, she gathered her things and headed for the door. But someone blocked her path. Megan stood there with two of her friends, arms crossed, smiling that cruel smile. Going somewhere, charity case? Let me guess. Home to your little cardboard box? Leave me alone, Amara said quietly. Or what? Megan stepped closer. What are you going to do about it? Tell a teacher? Call your mom? Oh wait. She's probably too busy working her little minimum wage jobs to care about you. Something flickered in Amara's eyes. A spark. A fire. But she pushed it down. Now was not the time. She had learned long ago that fighting back only made things worse. Just let me go, she said. Megan stared at her for a long moment, then stepped aside with a dramatic wave of her hand. Fine. Go. But remember, Amara, you're nothing. You'll always be nothing. People like you don't matter. Amara walked past her without another word. She kept walking until she was outside the school, until she was 2 blocks away, until she was sure nobody could see her. Then she stopped. She leaned against a brick wall and took a deep breath. Megan's words echoed in her head. You're nothing. You'll always be nothing. But somewhere deep inside, a different voice whispered back, a voice that sounded a lot like her own. Not yet, but just wait. Just wait and see. She wiped her eyes, straightened her shoulders, and started walking toward the library. She had work to do. Big work. Important work. And someday, somehow, everyone would know her name, not as the poor girl, not as the charity case, but as someone who changed everything. The Riverside Public Library closed at 9 every night. Amara knew this because she was always the last one to leave. The librarians had to remind her, gently tapping her shoulder and pointing at the clock. Every single night, the same routine. But Amara didn't mind leaving. By 9 o'clock, she had usually finished what she came to do. 4 hours of solid work, sometimes 5 if she got there early. That was more than most people did in a week. Tonight, she was working on something special. A project she had been building for almost 6 months now. An app. Not a game, or something silly. Something real. Something that could actually help people. She called it Bridge. The idea came to her one cold night last winter. She had seen a homeless man sitting outside the grocery store, shivering in the wind. He looked lost and confused, like he didn't know where to go or who to ask for help. Amara had stopped and talked to him. His name was Walter. He told her he had been trying to find a shelter for 3 days, but he didn't have a phone and didn't know where to look. He had walked past 2 shelters without even knowing they were there. That night, Amara couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about Walter, about all the people like him, people who needed help but didn't know how to find it. There had to be a better way, so she started building one. Bridge was designed to connect homeless people with resources in their area. Shelters, food banks, medical clinics, job training programs, all in one simple app that could work even on old phones with slow internet. She had taught herself everything she needed to know: coding, database design, user interface, all from library books and free online courses. Nobody knew about this. Not her mother, who was too tired to ask about her day. Not her classmates, who thought she was just a quiet, poor girl with nothing interesting to say. Not even the librarians, who assumed she was just doing homework. Only one person at school had figured out that Amara was different. And that person was about to change everything. The next morning, Amara was walking to her first class when someone called her name. "Amara, can I speak with you for a moment?" She turned and saw Mrs. Chen standing in the doorway of the guidance counselor's office. Mrs. Chen was a small woman with gray hair and warm eyes. She had been working at Riverside High for almost 30 years. Students loved her because she actually listened. She didn't just pretend to care. She really did. "Am I in trouble?" Amara asked. Mrs. Chen smiled. "Not at all. Please, come in. Sit down." The office was small but comfortable. There were plants by the window and pictures on the walls, inspirational quotes, photos of former students who had gone on to do great things. Amara had been in this office before, but only for routine check-ins. Mrs. Chen closed the door and sat down across from her. For a moment, she just looked at Amara, studying her, like she was trying to see something beneath the surface. "I've been watching you," Mrs. Chen said finally. "For a long time now." Amara shifted in her seat. "Watching me? Your grades are good. Not perfect, but good. You never cause problems. You never ask for help. You just exist. Quietly. In the background." Mrs. Chen leaned forward. "But I don't think that's who you really are." Amara didn't know what to say. Her heart was beating faster now. "I spoke with the librarians at the public library last week," Mrs. Chen continued. "They told me about a young girl who comes in every single night, who stays until closing time, who reads books on advanced mathematics and computer programming, who taught herself to code without any help from anyone." Amara's face went pale. Her secret was out. "They also told me," Mrs. Chen said softly, "that this girl is one of the smartest people they have ever met. And they were wondering why nobody at her school seemed to know about it." "Ruby." Silence filled the room. Amara looked down at her hands. They were trembling slightly. "Why do you hide it?" Mrs. Chen asked. "Why don't you let anyone see how brilliant you are?" "See." Amara was quiet for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. "Because it doesn't matter. People like me don't get chances. We don't get opportunities. We just survive. That's all we can do." Mrs. Chen shook her head slowly. "That's not true. And I'm going to prove it to you." She reached into her desk and pulled out a flyer. It was bright blue with bold white letters. "National Young Innovators Competition. First prize, $50,000, scholarship, summer internship at a leading tech company. This competition happens once a year," Mrs. Chen explained. "Students from all over the country enter. They present original projects, apps, inventions, solutions to real-world problems. The winners get scholarships, internships, connections. It's a ticket to a completely different life." Amara stared at the flyer. $50,000. That was more money than her mother made in 2 years. That was enough to pay off their debts, to move to a better apartment, to finally stop worrying about food and rent and electricity. "I want you to enter," Mrs. Chen said. "I think you could win." "I can't." The words came out automatically. "I don't have a computer at home. I don't have nice clothes. I can't afford to travel to wherever this thing is held. I can't. Stop. Mrs. Chen held up her hand. I didn't ask what you can't do. I asked you to enter. Let me worry about the rest. Amara looked at her. Really looked. And for the first time in a very long time, she saw something she had almost forgotten existed. Hope. Why are you doing this? Amara asked. Why do you care? Mrs. Chen smiled. And there was something sad in her eyes. Because 30 years ago, I was you. Poor. Invisible. Convinced that my dreams were too big for someone like me. And then one teacher believed in me. Just one. She changed my whole life. She paused. Now, it's my turn to do the same for someone else. Amara left the office with the flyer in her hand. Her mind was spinning. Could she really do this? Could she really compete against kids from wealthy families with expensive equipment and private tutors? She was so lost in thought that she didn't see them coming. Megan and her friends were waiting by the lockers. 3 of them, blocking the hallway like a wall. Well, Megan said, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. Where have you been? Having a little chat with the counselor? Let me guess, they're finally sending you to a school more suited to your situation. Amara tried to walk past, but one of the girls stepped in front of her. What's that in your hand? Megan grabbed the flyer before Amara could react. Her eyes scanned the paper, and then she burst out laughing. A competition? You? Oh, this is too good. She showed it to her friends. The charity case thinks she's going to be an innovator. What are you going to invent, Amara? A better cardboard box to live in? They all laughed, loud and cruel. Megan crumpled up the flyer and threw it on the ground. Then she stepped closer to Amara, so close their faces were almost touching. Let me give you some free advice, she whispered. Know your place. You're not one of us. You never will be. Stop embarrassing yourself and just accept who you are. A nobody. A nothing. She pushed past Amara, bumping her shoulder hard. The other girls followed, still giggling. Amara stood alone in the hallway. The crumpled flyer lay at her feet. For a moment, she wanted to leave it there. To give up. To accept that Megan was right. That people like her didn't get to dream big. But then she thought about her mother. Coming home exhausted every night. She thought about Walter, the homeless man who couldn't find a shelter. She thought about Mrs. Chen, who had once been poor and invisible too. Slowly, Amara bent down and picked up the flyer. She smoothed it out with her hands, fold by fold, until she could read the words again. National Young Innovators Competition. She folded it carefully and put it in her pocket. Megan thought she was nothing. The whole school thought she was nothing. But they were wrong, and soon, very soon, she was going to prove it. 3 months. That's how much time Amara had before the competition. 90 days to turn her dream into something real. 90 days to prove that she was more than what everyone thought she was. Mrs. Chen kept her promise. She arranged for Amara to use the school's computer lab after classes ended every day. The lab was usually locked by 4 o'clock. But Mrs. Chen got special permission from the principal. She told him it was for a student working on an important academic project. She didn't mention Amara's name. She knew how quickly rumors spread in this school. The computer lab became Amara's second home. Every day after the final bell, she would walk quickly through the empty hallways, avoiding anyone who might ask questions. She would unlock the lab with the key Mrs. Chen had given her, sit down at the best computer in the corner, and get to work. Bridge was coming together piece by piece. The basic structure was already done. Now she needed to make it perfect. She needed to add features that would make the judges notice. She needed to test it again and again until there were no mistakes left. Some nights, she stayed until 8 or 9. The janitor, an old man named Mr. Reyes, would knock on the door to let her know he was locking up the building. He never asked what she was doing. He just smiled and wished her good luck. Amara wondered if he somehow knew. Maybe Mrs. Chen had told him, or maybe he just recognized the look in her eyes. the look of someone fighting for something important. At home, things were getting harder. Her mother had lost one of her jobs. A restaurant downtown had closed suddenly, and just like that, a third of their income was gone. Now her mother was working even longer hours at her remaining jobs, trying to make up the difference. Amara wanted to help. She wanted to quit school and get a job, anything to take some weight off her mother's shoulders. But her mother wouldn't allow it. "You stay in school," her mother said one night, her voice tired but firm. "You finish your education. That's the only way out of this life. Promise me." Amara promised. But the guilt never went away. Every night, she watched her mother come home with swollen feet and dark circles under her eyes. Every night, she wondered if she was being selfish by chasing this dream. But she kept working. She had to. 2 months before the competition, Mrs. Chen called Amara into her office again. This time, there was a large bag sitting on the desk. "What's this?" Amara asked. Mrs. Chen smiled. "Open it." Inside the bag were clothes. Nice clothes. A blazer, dress pants, a blouse, even a pair of black shoes that looked brand new. Amara's hands froze. She looked up at Mrs. Chen, confused. "You'll need something to wear for the competition," Mrs. Chen explained. "You can't present in front of judges and industry leaders in old jeans and worn-out sneakers." "But I can't afford this," Amara whispered. "It's not from me," Mrs. Chen interrupted gently. "A few teachers heard about your project. They wanted to help. They pooled their money together and bought these for you." Amara stared at the clothes. Her vision blurred. She blinked, and a tear rolled down her cheek. "Why would they do that?" she asked. "They don't even know me." "They know enough," Mrs. Chen said. "They know you're special. And they want to see you succeed." For the first time in a very long time, Amara felt something crack open inside her chest. All her life, she had felt invisible, like she didn't matter, like no one cared whether she existed or not. But here were people who believed in her. Teachers who had never even spoken to her, giving their own money so she could have a chance. It was almost too much to process. "Thank you," she whispered. It was all she could manage to say. Mrs. Chen reached across the desk and squeezed her hand. "Don't thank us yet. Go win that competition. That's all the thanks we need." Amara threw herself into her work with even more intensity. Every spare minute was spent improving Bridge. She added a feature that let users search for resources by category. She built a map system that showed the closest shelters and food banks based on location. She created a simple design that anyone could understand, even people who weren't good with technology. She also practiced her presentation. Over and over. In front of the bathroom mirror. In the empty computer lab. Walking home from school. She timed herself. She adjusted her words. She anticipated questions the judges might ask and prepared answers. At school, she kept her head down more than ever. She couldn't afford distractions. She couldn't afford to let Megan and her friends get inside her head. But Megan had other plans. It was a Thursday afternoon, 1 month before the competition. Amara was walking toward the computer lab when she heard footsteps behind her. Fast footsteps. Too fast. Before she could turn around, someone grabbed her backpack and yanked it off her shoulders. She spun around. Megan was standing there, holding the backpack with a wicked grin. 2 of her friends stood behind her, blocking any escape. "Give it back," Amara said, trying to keep her voice calm. "Give it back?" Megan mimicked in a high-pitched voice. "What's the magic word? Please." Amara hated how small her voice sounded. "Please, give it back." Megan pretended to think about it. Then she unzipped the backpack and dumped everything onto the floor. Books. Notebooks. Pens. Her precious folders full of research and notes for Bridge. "Oops," Megan said flatly. "My hand slipped." One of her friends laughed. The other one kicked a notebook down the hallway. Amara bent down to gather her things. Her hands were shaking. Not from fear, from anger. A deep, burning anger that she had pushed down for so long. Megan crouched beside her, getting close to her ear. "I heard about your little project. Your little app for homeless people." She laughed softly. "How cute. You think you can actually compete with real students? Students with actual talent and resources? You're going to walk into that competition and humiliate yourself. Everyone will see what a fraud you are." Something snapped inside Amara. She stood up slowly. She looked directly into Megan's eyes. And for the first time, she didn't look away. "Are you done?" Amara asked. Her voice was steady now. Calm. Cold. Megan blinked, caught off guard. "Excuse me? I asked if you're done, because I have work to do. Important work. The kind of work you couldn't understand even if I explained it to you." Megan's smile disappeared. Her face turned red. "What did you just say to me?" "You heard me." Amara picked up the last of her things and put them back in her bag. "You've been calling me names for years. Charity case. Nobody. Nothing. And maybe you're right. Maybe I am a nobody right now. But the difference between us is that I'm trying to become something. I'm working for it. Every single day." "What are you doing, Megan? Besides making yourself feel big by putting other people down?" The hallway was silent. Megan's friends looked uncomfortable. They had never seen anyone talk to Megan like this. Megan opened her mouth to respond, but nothing came out. For once, she had no clever comeback, no sharp insult. Amara didn't wait for her to recover. She turned and walked away, her back straight, her head high. Behind her, she heard Megan finally speak. Amara didn't turn around. She just kept walking. Let her try, she thought. Let her do her worst. Because nothing was going to stop her now. Not Megan. Not poverty. Not all the doubt and fear in the world. She was going to that competition. And she was going to show everyone exactly who she was. The airplane was smaller than Amara expected. She had seen planes in movies, big and fancy with comfortable seats and smiling flight attendants. This one was cramped and loud, and every time it shook from turbulence, her stomach dropped like she was on a roller coaster. But she didn't care. She was on a plane. For the first time in her life, she was flying somewhere. And not just anywhere. San Francisco. The city where dreams came true for people who worked in technology. The city where her future was waiting. Mrs. Chen had arranged everything. The plane ticket, the hotel room, even a small amount of spending money for food. Amara had tried to refuse, but Mrs. Chen wouldn't hear it. "This is an investment," she had said. "Not charity. An investment in your future. Someday, when you're successful, you can pay it forward to someone else." Now, looking out the tiny airplane window at the clouds below, Amara made a silent promise. If she ever made it, if she ever became someone, she would help others the way Mrs. Chen had helped her. She would never forget where she came from. The competition was being held at a massive convention center downtown. When Amara arrived, her breath caught in her throat. The building was huge, all glass and steel, shining in the California sun. People in expensive suits walked in and out, talking on phones, carrying laptops, looking important. Amara stood outside for a long moment, clutching her bag. Inside that bag was her laptop, borrowed from the school, loaded with her presentation. Everything she had worked for was in that bag. She looked down at her clothes. The blazer and pants the teachers had bought for her. They fit perfectly. She looked professional, like she belonged here. But did she really belong? A voice in her head whispered doubt. These other contestants came from wealthy families. They had private tutors, expensive equipment, years of training. What did she have? A borrowed laptop and a dream. No. She shook her head. She couldn't think like that. Not now. Not after everything she had been through. She took a deep breath and walked inside. The registration area was crowded with young people from all over the country. Amara could hear different accents, see different faces. Some looked confident, laughing with their parents or coaches who had come to support them. Others looked nervous, just like her. She found her name badge and pinned it to her blazer. Amara. Contestant number 47. There were over 100 participants. Only 10 would make it to the final round. Only one would win the grand prize. The first day was a blur of preliminary rounds. Each contestant had 5 minutes to present their project to a small panel of judges. Amara's slot was in the afternoon. She spent the morning watching other presentations, taking notes, trying to calm her nerves. Some projects were impressive. A student from New York had built a drone that could deliver medical supplies to remote areas. A girl from Texas had created a water purification device using simple materials. The competition was fierce. These were smart people with smart ideas. When her turn came, Amara walked into the small presentation room on shaky legs. 3 judges sat behind a table, their faces neutral and unreadable. A timer on the wall showed 5 minutes. She connected her laptop to the screen. Her hands were trembling. She could feel her heart pounding in her ears. Then she began. My name is Amara, and I built an app called Bridge. She talked about Walter, the homeless man she had met outside the grocery store. She talked about the thousands of people living on the streets who didn't know where to find help. She showed how Bridge worked, how it connected people to shelters, food banks, medical care, job programs. She demonstrated the simple interface, designed for anyone to use. Somewhere in the middle of her presentation, something changed. The fear melted away. The doubt disappeared. All that was left was the truth of what she had built and why she had built it. When the timer buzzed, she stopped. The judges looked at each other. One of them, an older woman with silver hair, leaned forward. Where did you learn to code? She asked. The public library, Amara answered. Books and free online courses. No formal training? No classes? No, ma'am. I taught myself. The judges exchanged another look. The woman wrote something on her notepad. Thank you, Amara. You may go. That night, in her hotel room, Amara couldn't sleep. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of her presentation. Had she said enough? Had she said too much? Did the judges think she was good enough? The next morning, the results were posted. Amara pushed through the crowd to see the list of finalists. Her eyes scanned the names once, twice, 3 times. There it was. Number 7 on the list. Amara. She had made it to the finals. The final round was held in the main auditorium. Hundreds of people filled the seats. Industry leaders, investors, journalists. This wasn't just a school competition anymore. This was real. Amara peeked out from backstage at the crowd. Her stomach twisted into knots. So many people. So many important people. All of them would be watching her, judging her. And then she saw a face she recognized. In the 5th row, sitting with perfect posture and an expensive outfit, was Megan Price. Amara's blood went cold. What was she doing here? Then she remembered. Megan's father was important. He had connections everywhere. Of course, he could get his daughter a seat at an event like this. Megan probably wanted to watch Amara fail in person. Megan spotted her looking. Their eyes met. And Megan smiled. That same cruel smile she had worn 100 times before. The smile that said, I told you so. You don't belong here. Win mile. Win my do 3 time. 17. Win my looks dead by they. Win my looks civility. Win my looks civility. Amara looked away. Her hands were shaking again. All the confidence she had built over the past months started crumbling. She couldn't do this. She couldn't go out there in front of all those people. In front of Megan. She would mess up. She would freeze. Everyone would laugh at her. Megan was right. She was just a poor girl from nowhere. She didn't belong here. Then, a memory surfaced. Her mother's voice. Tired but strong. You stay in school. You finish your education. That's the only way out of this life. Her mother, who worked 3 jobs so Amara could have a chance. Who came home with swollen feet every night, but never complained. Who believed in her daughter, Even when she couldn't see her dreams, Mrs. Chen, who saw something special in a quiet girl that nobody else noticed, who fought to give her this opportunity. The teachers who gave their own money so she could have nice clothes. Mr. Reyes, the janitor, who smiled at her every night and wished her luck. All those people believed in her. They had invested in her. She couldn't let them down. And more than that, she thought about all the people like Walter. People living on the streets, desperate for help, not knowing where to turn. Bridge could help them. Bridge could save lives, but only if she got up on that stage and showed the world what it could do. This wasn't about Megan. This wasn't about proving anyone wrong. This was about something much bigger than high school drama. This was about changing lives. Amara straightened her blazer. She wiped her palms on her pants. She took a deep breath. When they called her name, she walked onto that stage with her head held high. The lights were blinding. The audience was a sea of shadows. She couldn't see their faces, couldn't see their reactions. It was just her, alone, with a microphone and a screen. She thought about her empty refrigerator at home, the cardboard in her shoes, the night she went to bed hungry, the years of being invisible. Then she opened her mouth, and she spoke. For 15 minutes, Amara was not a poor girl from nowhere. She was not a charity case. She was not invisible. She was powerful. She told her story. Not with shame, but with pride. She showed them Bridge. Not with apology, but with confidence. She explained how it worked. She showed the data from the 3 shelters that had already tested it. She talked about the lives it could change. When she finished, there was silence. A long, heavy silence. Then, somewhere in the back, someone started clapping. Then another person. Then another. Suddenly, the whole auditorium was on its feet. Applause thundered through the room. People were cheering. Some were wiping their eyes. Amara stood there, frozen, unable to believe what was happening. She looked at the judges' table. The woman with silver hair was standing, clapping harder than anyone. Beside her, another judge, a man in a dark suit, was nodding slowly, a look of amazement on his face. And in the 5th row, Megan Price sat perfectly still. She wasn't smiling anymore. Her face was pale, her eyes wide. For the first time in her life, she had nothing to say. Amara didn't look at her for long. She didn't need to. This moment wasn't about Megan. This moment was about a hungry girl who dared to dream, and a room full of strangers who finally saw her for who she really was. The applause lasted for what felt like forever. Amara stood on the stage, her legs shaking, her heart racing, not quite believing what was happening. People were on their feet. Strangers were cheering for her. Some were even crying. When the noise finally died down, she walked off the stage in a daze. The other finalists were waiting backstage, and a few of them came up to shake her hand. A boy from California told her that her presentation was the best he had ever seen. A girl from Florida said she hoped Bridge would be available in her city soon. Amara thanked them, but she could barely process their words. Everything felt like a dream. A beautiful, impossible dream. The remaining presentations went by in a blur. Amara watched from the side, but her mind kept drifting. Had she really just done that? Had she really stood in front of hundreds of people and told her story, the story she had kept hidden for so long? Finally, it was time for the results. All 10 finalists were called back onto the stage. They stood in a line, facing the audience, while the head judge walked to the microphone. It was the woman with silver hair, the one who had asked Amara about her coding background. Before I announce the winner, she said, I want to say something. I have been judging this competition for 12 years. I have seen brilliant ideas from brilliant young minds. But today, I witnessed something special, something that reminded me why innovation matters. It's not just about technology. It's about people. It's about solving real problems for real human beings. She paused and looked down the line of finalists. Her eyes stopped on Amara. This year's winner created something from nothing. No fancy equipment, no expensive training. Just determination, compassion, and a desire to help others. This project has the potential to save lives. And it was built by a young woman who taught herself to code at a public library. Amara's breath caught in her throat. The winner of this year's National Young Innovators Competition is Amara, with her project Bridge. The world stopped. For a moment, Amara couldn't move. She couldn't breathe. She just stood there, frozen, while the auditorium exploded in applause again. Then someone was pushing her forward. The other finalists were clapping, smiling, congratulating her. She walked toward the judge on legs that didn't feel like her own. The woman handed her a trophy. It was heavy and shiny, with her name already engraved on it. How had they done that so fast? She didn't know. She didn't care. She just held it against her chest like it was the most precious thing in the world. Because it was. This trophy meant $50,000 for her family. It meant a scholarship. It meant a future. Congratulations, the judge said warmly. You earned this. The reception afterward was held in a fancy ballroom connected to the convention center. There were tables covered with food, more food than Amara had ever seen in one place. Waiters walked around with trays of appetizers. People in expensive clothes stood in groups, talking and laughing. Amara stood near the wall, still holding her trophy, feeling completely out of place. She didn't know how to talk to these people. She didn't know the right things to say or the right way to act. Then a woman approached her. She was tall and elegant, with short, dark hair and kind eyes. She looked familiar, but Amara couldn't place her. Amara, the woman said, extending her hand. My name is Dr. Helen Park. I'm the CEO of Nexus Technologies. Amara's eyes went wide. Nexus Technologies was one of the biggest tech companies in the world. Everyone knew that name. And this woman ran it. It's nice to meet you, Amara managed to say, shaking her hand. Dr. Park smiled. I watched your presentation. It moved me deeply. She paused, and something shifted in her expression. Something personal. You see, 30 years ago, I was a lot like you. I grew up poor. My family had nothing. I used to steal food from the school cafeteria because I was too ashamed to ask for the free lunch. Amara stared at her. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. I taught myself to code on an old computer someone threw away. Dr. Park continued. I worked 3 jobs to put myself through college. People told me I would never make it. That people like me didn't belong in the tech world. She smiled softly. They were wrong. Tears were forming in Amara's eyes. She blinked them back, but it was no use. Your app is not just impressive, Doctor, Park said. It's important. It could genuinely change lives, and I want to help you make that happen. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a business card. I want to fund the full development of Bridge, and I want you to intern at my company this summer. You'll work directly with me. I'll teach you everything I know. Amara looked at the card in her hand. It had Dr. Park's name, her email, her phone number, a direct line to one of the most powerful women in technology. Why? Amara whispered. Why would you do this for me? Dr. Park's eyes were warm. Because someone did it for me once. A stranger who believed in me when no one else did. She changed my life. And now it's my turn to do the same for someone else. Amara couldn't hold back the tears anymore. They streamed down her face as she clutched the business card and the trophy against her chest. Thank you, she said, her voice breaking. Thank you so much. Dr. Park placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. Don't thank me yet. You have a lot of hard work ahead of you. But I have a feeling you're going to do amazing things, Amara. Amazing things. She walked away, leaving Amara standing there, overwhelmed with emotion. A few minutes later, another figure approached. This time, Amara recognized her immediately. Megan. She looked different somehow. Smaller. Her usual confidence was gone. She stood a few feet away, her hands clasped in front of her. Her eyes fixed on the floor. Can I talk to you? She asked quietly. Amara didn't respond. She just waited. Megan took a deep breath. I watched your presentation. I heard your story. About your mom working 3 jobs. About you going hungry. About teaching yourself at the library. She swallowed hard. I didn't know. I didn't know any of that. You didn't want to know, Amara said calmly. There's a difference. Megan flinched like she had been slapped. But she didn't argue. She just nodded slowly. You're right. I didn't want to know. It was easier to make fun of you. To put you down. It made me feel better about myself. Her voice cracked. That's not an excuse. I know that. I wanted to say I'm sorry. For everything. Amara looked at her for a long moment. She thought about all the years of teasing. The cruel words. The laughter. The backpack thrown on the ground. The crumpled flyer. Part of her wanted to say something harsh, to make Megan feel even a fraction of the pain she had caused. But another part of her remembered what Dr. Park had said. About strangers who believed in her. About paying it forward. About breaking the cycle. I'm not going to pretend it didn't hurt, Amara said finally. Because it did. Every single day. It hurt. But holding on to that anger won't help either of us. She paused. People can change, Megan. I hope you do. 7 Ds. Megan looked up. Surprised. She opened her mouth to say something. But no words came out. She just nodded, turned, and walked away. Amara watched her go. She didn't feel satisfaction. She didn't feel revenge. She just felt tired. And strangely, at peace. 1 year later, Bridge was officially launched nationwide. Over 15,000 homeless individuals found shelter, food, and support through the app in its first 6 months. Amara was featured in magazines and news stories. People called her an inspiration, a genius, a hero. But she never forgot where she came from. She never forgot the empty refrigerator, the cardboard in her shoes, the hunger that kept her awake at night. She graduated high school as valedictorian. She enrolled at Stanford University on a full scholarship. She continued working with Dr. Park, learning and growing every day, and every time she had the chance, she reached back. She volunteered at shelters. She mentored students from poor families. She told her story to anyone who would listen, because she knew the truth now. The truth that nobody had told her when she was sitting alone in that cafeteria, praying for a bite of food. You are not invisible. You are not worthless. You are not nothing. You are just waiting for the right moment to show the world who you really are. And when that moment comes, take it. Take it with everything you have, because the girl they laughed at today might just be the one who changes the world tomorrow.